The rain was coming down hard on a Memphis street in 1976. Elvis's limousine rolled past a man hunched under a flickering streetlight, his guitar case open, strings out of tune. Elvis told the driver, "Stop." Before we go on, if you've ever seen a single act of kindness change someone's life, this story will stay with you. Stick around because the ending is unforgettable. Tires hiss against wet asphalt as the limousine eases to a crawl. The year is 1976, Memphis, Tennessee. The streets near Beale are slick and empty, except for the faint pulse of neon from a diner sign, half the letters burned out. Inside a long black limousine, Elvis Presley leans forward in his seat, one elbow on his knee. The white collar of his shirt is open, exposing a gold chain that glints every time the passing streetlight catches it. Through the rain-streaked window he sees him, a man hunched beneath a flickering street lamp. His jacket is soaked through, cuffs frayed. The guitar in his hands tilts forward as he plays, strings so out of tune they buzz under his fingers. His case lies open at his feet, catching more rain than coins. Elvis watches. The man's voice is rough, but there's something in it raw and steady that cuts through the rainfall. Witnesses would later say he looked like someone wrestling with the weather and winning. If only for a moment. Elvis straightens. "Pull over," he says quietly. The driver glances in the rear view, unsure he's heard right. Bodyguards in the front seat exchange looks. This isn't the kind of stop Elvis usually makes, but the tone leaves no room for debate. The limousine's turn signal clicks, echoing in the silence of the cabin. The car noses up to the curb. Rain patters harder now, rattling against the roof. The smell of wet pavement seeps inside as the rear door opens. Elvis steps out. No umbrella, no fanfare. His scarf darkens under the drizzle, clinging to his jacket. The few people scattered on the sidewalk freeze, realizing who they're looking at. The man under the streetlight stumbles mid-chord, his fingers pausing on the strings. His eyes follow the figure walking toward him. The glow of the diner sign paints Elvis's face in shifting red and yellow. Up close, the street is noisier, rain slapping against puddles, the faint hum of the diner's vent fan, the buzz of the street lamp overhead. Elvis stops just short of the man's guitar case. For a second, neither speaks. The man swallows, adjusting his grip on the guitar. Elvis tilts his head slightly, a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. He doesn't introduce himself, he doesn't need to. Somewhere down the block, a door slams, sending a shiver through the quiet moment. The man's gaze flickers between Elvis's face and the scarf dripping rain onto the sidewalk. Elvis takes one small step closer. The crowd, or what little of it there is, leans in. Then without warning, Elvis says something so simple it almost disappears under the rain. The musician's pick freezes in midair. Elvis is standing in front of him, close enough to touch the guitar's neck. The man blinks, not sure if this is real. "Mind if I join you?" Elvis asks, voice low but clear over the rain. The man hesitates. His fingers hover above the strings. For a second, he looks like he might laugh, half expecting the cold to have finally gotten to him, and that this is some kind of hallucination. But the voice is real. The presence is undeniable. Elvis steps closer, tilting his head toward the guitar. "Let me see her," he said. The man offers it without a word. Elvis cradles the instrument, feeling the weight, the warped neck. His right hand brushes over the strings, and they rasp with the kind of tired buzz only years of weather and neglect can give. He turns a tuning peg, then another, the subtle creak of metal gears mixing with the patter of rain. Humming softly, he finds the note, adjusts again. A clean tone finally rings out, carrying just far enough to hush the small knot of people gathering nearby. A young couple steps out of the diner, drawn toward the street lamp's pool of light. A cab driver leans against his car across the road. No one's talking. Even the rain seems to settle into a gentler rhythm. Elvis strums once more, testing the sound. You know Peace in the Valley, he asks. The man nods quickly, eyes darting between Elvis's face and the growing crowd. Elvis starts the first chord, his voice warm and deep, filling the wet night air. The man joins in, his harmony shaky at first, but gaining strength with each line. Rain beads on the guitar's body, rolling down toward the strap button. The street lamp above throws a soft halo over both of them, two silhouettes in the mist. Somewhere in the crowd, a camera clicks. The flash pops white against the dark, briefly etching the moment into light. The man blinks, but keeps singing. The chorus swells, a mix of the man's raspy harmony and Elvis's rich baritone. It's not a perfect performance. Strings buzz, a note slips, but it's real. And in that corner of Memphis, it's enough to make the cold night feel warmer. They finish the verse together. Elvis lets the final chord ring, fingers lingering on the strings, before passing the guitar back. The man takes it, still processing the fact that this just happened. The weight of the instrument in his hands feels different now, heavier somehow, as if part of the moment has soaked into the wood. Elvis adjusts his scarf, glances toward the limousine. His bodyguards remain at the edge of the crowd. Wait. Elvis takes a half step back, eyes narrowing thoughtfully. Then he smiles, small, knowing he's not finished here. Elvis glances toward his bodyguard and makes a quick, almost imperceptible hand signal. The crowd shifts, unsure what's happening. The bodyguard steps forward, disappearing into the shadows by the limousine. Rain slicks his jacket. A few seconds later he returns, holding something small protected under his arm. It's an envelope, crisp edges, bright white even in the dim streetlight. The paper looks out of place against the wet, worn brick of the buildings. Elvis takes it casually, like he's holding nothing more than a letter. But there's intent in the way he grips it, firm, deliberate. He walks back to the man. No microphone, no fanfare, no explanation, just a quiet presence that somehow feels louder than the city around them. You keep playing, Elvis says, slipping the envelope into the man's coat pocket. His voice is steady, but there's a softness under it, something private, meant only for the man to hear. The man blinks, hand instinctively moving toward the pocket. Elvis stops him with a light touch on the shoulder. Not now, he murmurs. Play. The man hesitates, then lifts the guitar again. The rain patters against the case at his feet. The street lamp buzzes overhead, and he plays. This time, the chords are stronger. His voice rises above the drizzle. Not perfect, but confident. A couple of people clap along, their hands muffled by the wet air. Elvis stands beside him for a moment, nodding slightly to the rhythm. A smile flickers at the edge of his expression, there and gone again. From across the street, the cab driver calls out, "Sing one for the king." Laughter ripples through the small crowd. Elvis tips his head toward the driver, then turns back to the man. "Make it yours," he says quiet. The man finishes the song with a final ringing chord. The sound hangs in the damp air for a beat before the crowd breaks into applause. Elvis steps back, offering a small wave to the onlookers. Then he turns, walking toward the limousine. His scarf drips steadily, leaving a faint trail of water on the pavement. The door opens. He pauses with one hand on the frame, looking back just once at the man under the streetlight. There's no grand farewell, just a nod, like they've shared something neither needs to explain. The door closes with a soft, heavy thud. The limousine's engine hums, headlights cutting through the mist. Tires splash as it pulls away, taillights glowing red against the wet street. The man stands frozen, guitar still in his hand. The envelope is warm against his chest, but he hasn't looked inside. Not yet. Whatever's in there, it can wait until morning. Sunlight slants through the greasy diner windows, catching dust in the air. The rain is gone, replaced by a pale Memphis morning. Inside a booth by the window, the man sits with his guitar leaning against the wall. His jacket hangs over the seat, still damp from the night before. A waitress in a pink uniform sets down a plate stacked high with pancakes, eggs and bacon. Steam rises from the food, mixing with the smell of coffee and fried batter. She grins at him. "You sure you can eat all that?" He chuckles, I'll manage. He reaches into his coat pocket and pulls out the envelope still sealed. The paper now slightly softened from last night's rain. With a careful thumb, he tears it open. Inside, 10 crisp $100 bills and a folded piece of hotel stationery, the handwriting bold and clean, for new strings and better days. The man stares at the note, his hand resting on the table. He doesn't notice the coffee cooling beside him. The waitress leans over, eyes widening. Is that? He nods once, folding the note back carefully, like it's something that might fall apart if handled too roughly. He slides it into his shirt pocket, closer to his heart. For a moment, it's just him, the breakfast, and the low hum of the diner's neon sign. It could have ended there. A night to remember, a story to tell a few friends. But outside, the world is already moved. Across town, in the cramped office of the Memphis Gazette, a photo editor is pinning a black and white print to the wall. It's grainy but unmistakable. Elvis Presley, standing under a street lamp in the rain, head bowed toward a man with a guitar. According to reports, the photo had been sold by a bystander for a modest fee. The paper runs it on page 3. By afternoon it's on the wire. Back at the diner, the man doesn't yet know that his face and his moment with Elvis will be seen in cities he's never visited. He's just finishing the last of the pancakes when the phone behind the counter rings. The waitress picks it up, nodding as she listens, then cups the receiver with her hand. It's for you, she says. He frowns. Me? She gestures with the phone. Guy says his name's from a radio station. He wipes his hands on a napkin, walks to the counter and takes the call. Hello? The voice on the other end is bright, animated. Is this John? Yes. This is Ray from WMC. I think you've got a story our listeners need to hear. John looks out the diner window, sunlight flashing off passing cars. He has no idea that this phone call will set off a chain of events, even bigger than the night before. Is this John? The voice asks, again louder this time, like the caller's afraid the moment might slip away. John shifts the receiver to his other hand, glancing back at his half-finished coffee. Yes, sir? Who's calling? This is Ray Jenkins, morning host over at WMC. I saw your picture in the Gazette. That was you, right? Singing with Elvis in the rain? John exhales slowly. That was me. Well, Ray says, Memphis wants to hear it straight from the man himself. Can you come by the studio this afternoon? John hesitates. He's not used to microphones, crowds, or being on the spot, but something in Ray's voice tells him, this isn't just a casual chat. It's a chance. I'll be there. Hours later, John sits in a small studio lined with egg crate foam. The smell of coffee and cigarette smoke hangs in the air. A red light blinks on above the booth window. Ray leans into his microphone. Folks, you've seen the photo, but today we've got the man himself. John, tell us about that night. John clears his throat. He talks about the rain, the cold, the moment Elvis stepped out of that limousine. His voice falters when he gets to the envelope. He told me to keep playing, that people needed to hear me. Ray nods, letting the silence hang just long enough before hitting a button on the console. A recording plays, scratchy, muffled by distance, but recognizable. It's Peace in the Valley. Elvis's voice rich and steady, John's harmony rough, but heartfelt. The sound fills the studio, tinny yet alive. When the song fades, Ray's phone lines light up. One caller offers to buy John a brand new guitar. Another books him for a Friday night set at a local bar. Someone else offers to press a small run of vinyl singles if John can get into a studio. A week later, John's back at the diner when the waitress brings over a large rectangular package. The cardboard is taped tight, the shipping label neat and clean. Inside, cushioned in thick paper, is a top-of-the-line Gibson acoustic. The finish gleams under the diner's fluorescent light. Across the headstock, a small brass plate is screwed in place. You'll always have a stage, Elvis. John runs his fingers along the engraving, his thumb brushing the cool metal. The guitar smells faintly of fresh wood and lacquer. It's heavier than his old one, but balanced, ready. He strums once. The sound is full, resonant. Nothing like the tired buzz of those warped strings from that rainy night. Heads turn from other tables. Someone claps, John thinks that's the end of it. A new guitar, a few gigs, a good story. But in 6 months, he'll find himself somewhere he never expected, under the bright lights of an arena stage, with Elvis Presley calling his name. 6 months later, the house lights fade inside the Mid-South Coliseum, and the roar of 13,000 voices rolls like thunder. John sits near the front, seat 3 in row A, his clean jacket pressed, a guitar pick tucked into the pocket. The brass plate from his Gibson guitar rests in his other hand, polished from constant touch. Around him, the air smells faintly of popcorn, hairspray and stage fog. Ushers hustle down the aisles with flashlights. Somewhere behind him, a woman laughs too loud, the sound swallowed by the rising hum of anticipation. The stage glows dimly in reds and golds, then spotlights snap on. The crowd erupts. Elvis walks out, dressed in a white jumpsuit that catches the light with every step. He takes the microphone, scanning the crowd. His gaze moves quickly over the first rows, and then stops. A small smile breaks across his face. He points. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to meet a friend of mine. We met on a rainy night in Memphis. Every head in the section turns toward John. His cheeks flush hot, but he can't help smiling back. Elvis starts into a slow ballad, one John knows by heart. The arrangement is rich, the band tight, but it's the look between the two men that carries the weight. John mouths the words, barely audible over the roar. When the song ends, Elvis raises a hand. Some folks say music can change a life. I think kindness can too. The crowd cheers, applause rippling like a wave across the arena. John doesn't remember the rest of the set in detail, just flashes. Elvis tossing scarves into the crowd, the horn section hitting a perfect high note, the vibration of the bass in his Backstage after the show, one of Elvis's managers approaches. John? Yes, sir. The man hands over a laminated card, the corners rounded, the printing bold, lifetime all-access pass. On the back, in ink that's already smudged a little, for wherever the music takes you. John turns it over in his hand. The card is smooth, cool, and surprisingly heavy for its size. This is for me? The manager smiles. The king said you'd know what to do with it. John swallows hard, his eyes stinging. He slips the card into the same shirt pocket that once held the envelope on that rainy night. In the years that follow, John uses that pass often, sometimes to watch from the front row, sometimes just to slip backstage and say hello. He never sells it, never loses it. When he isn't playing his Gibson, the card rests in its case, tucked between the strings, and the set list from that first show, the story of that night. Elvis in the rain, the envelope, the guitar. The seat in the front row travels far beyond Memphis, and long after the music stops, John carries proof that a single act of kindness can echo louder than a standing ovation.